This is the W5FC repeater, PL110.9. Afterglow Movie Net, Saturday, 10:30 p.m., W5FC.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? This is KFI-CDS. My name is Billy, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break and your call sign. Is emergency or priority traffic? The directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.880 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. General announcements. Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, where and when you can look through a telescope. National Space Society of discussion topic of the evening was space exploration and space history, constellation of the week, space launches of the week, recent astronomical discoveries, satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and our 73 rounds. All amateurs licensed to transmit frequency are invited to check in, so this time I'll turn over to my alternate net control, Tom, KE5ICX, if you'll do the check-in honors, please.
And I'll do exactly that. This is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray KE5ICX. I'll be your alternate net control station this evening. We'll start with low-power short-time check-ins. If you are one of those, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from, and let me know if you're low-power short-time.
Kilo Golf 5, Uniform, Foxtrot Romeo, Jacob, Farmers Branch, low power.
Kilo 5, Mike, Charlie Delta, Cody in Dallas, low power.
All right, we picked up two. We've got KG5UFR, Jacob in Farmers Branch, he's low power, and K5MCD, Cody, Dallas, low power. Anyone else, low power, short time, please come in. let's go ahead and move to general check-ins. Please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. General check-in.
Kilo India 5, Uniform Alpha Uniform, David in Mesquite.
Kilo 5.
5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda in DeSoto.
Kilo 5. Juliet Delta Whiskey John in Coppell.
All right, well, we'll slow getting started, but we've got KI5UAU, that's David in Mesquite, KA5JDW, John in Coppell, WB50ZL, Miss Brenda in DeSoto. Brenda, check your antenna, you're a little weak tonight. Additional check-ins, please come now.
This is November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Clay in Mesquite.
Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel Robert Richardson. This is Whiskey 5, Golf Uniform Sierra, Gus, far northeast Dallas. This is Kilo 1, Mike Uniform November, David in Rowlett.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton.
All right, let me get those folks in. There was one station, the final one, very weak. The last one who broke, please increase power, improve position. I'll be back to you in just a minute. N50F, Clay, Olin Mesquite, got you checked in. AA5AH, Robert Richardson. W5GUS, Gus, far northeast Dallas. K1MUN, David in Rowlett. KG5, Whiskey Victor Lima, that's James in Carrollton. Additional check-ins, please come now.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Alpha Papa Lima, Patrick in Dallas.
All right, I've got KG5APL, Patrick in Dallas. I just realized I don't have Echo Link up, but hold on, I will do that in just a moment. Additional check-in, please come out. All right, give me about 1 minute here. I'm going to get the Echo Link up so it's easier for me to do check-ins if I can see you folks, so give me just 1 second. All right, now I see you folks. Let me go ahead and take check-ins on Echolink. If you'd like to join us from there, please come now with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from. Echolink only. I will give you additional time.
This is Kilo 5, Kilo Tango X-Ray, Kelly in Point.
Kilo India 5, Kilo Whiskey Golf Cruise in Arlington.
In beautiful downtown Lockbourne, Ohio.
November Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth.
All right, we got a few folks here. Let me guess who I've got checked in. I've got K5KTX, Kelly in Point. Welcome back. I've got K5JJ Chaz in Lockbourne, Ohio. NB5F, Virginia, over in Fort Worth. Additional check-ins, please come now.
Kilo India 5, Kilo Whiskey Golf Cruise in Arlington.
Okay, we picked up KI5KWG. That's Cruise over in Arlington. All right, this will be on this round anywhere, any mode, anyhow. If you'd like to join us, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. Any mode. Okay, hearing none. There is a station, I believe, that's trying to check in. You have no audio. Got a good signal, but absolutely no audio. You may want to check that. All right, I'm going to go back to our net control. We have 17 check-ins so far. Back to you, Miss Billy, from KE5 ICX.
Thank you very much, Tom, and welcome to everyone who has checked in on Skynet. All right, so let's get started with general announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. If you have an announcement for this evening's net, please come now with your call sign. Okay, thanks, Tom. I saw the message about Bill being out. So if there are no general announcements, I'll go ahead with a few announcements of my own. The AMSAT Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 2 nets available to Dallas residents on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time. You'll need Echolink installed and you registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website at www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. The Dallas AMSAT Net East, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.880 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9. Tom N5HYP is the net control. All are welcome to check in. First Tuesday of the month is the VARC Club Night, so there's no AMSAT East on that night. Dallas AMSAT Net West is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.140 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9 and a positive offset. The ARC hosts several Monday night nets. First Monday of the month is Ham Fixin's Net. This is a net where you get a recipes, pick up some good recipes to try, and you can also ask questions about food or share an anecdote you have about food. So first Monday of the month, Ham Fixin's Net. Second Monday is MCOM 101, Emergency Communications. The third Monday, come back for a second helping of Ham Fixin's Net. And fourth Monday is Geek Net. We share all kinds of geeky news of the weird, brain teasers, interesting articles, and other, geeky tidbits. So join us on the fourth Monday for Geek Net. And fifth Monday is a surprise net. If we told you what it is, it wouldn't be a surprise. Participation is encouraged. Tuesdays, AMSAT East at 8 p.m. is Q&A, info and news for amateur satellites. Fridays is Search City simulation at 8 p.m. Emergency radio communications via CERT-trained amateur radio operators. Melissa KI5GRH is usually the net control. Visit the most disaster-prone city in the universe every Friday, Search City. All are welcome. Saturdays is the Night of Nets with TechNet from 7 to 8 p.m. And, of course, at 9 p.m., Skynet. And following Skynet is the Afterglow Movie Net. More on that in just a moment. First and third Sundays is the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air. And daily is the ARRL Net National Traffic System Training Net every night at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. All are welcome to check in on any or all of these nets. And as promised, after Skynet at 10:30 is the Afterglow Movie Net. So if you're new to this net and don't know how that works, we pick a movie, we'll watch it during the week, and then we'll come back on the Saturday following and we'll discuss the movie. We'll discuss anything from plot, characterization, special effects, music, or any other interesting bits of information about that film. And then at the end of the net, the next movie will be announced, and we continue. So it is great fun. We always watch interesting movies. There are several, B-movie, sci-fi, and other, more up-to-date movies too, but they're all generally sci-fi films. And we have a great time discussing those on the Afterglow Movie Net. So at this time, I'm net over to Tom, if you will give us tonight's award-winning synopsis, Afterglow info for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. So this is to KE5ICX from KF5CDS.
Why, thank you, Miss Billy, and this is KE5ICX. So here it is, my highly accurate synopsis to tonight's movie. The Formica race were, well, let's just say, a little less than cordial to the people of Earth. When they attacked Earth, they did so with sweeping efficiency. However, some kid without a driver's license crash-landed a spaceship he was flying into the Formica capital ship. Somehow, that disabled their attack, command, and control, and everyone went home. Little did the Earthlings know that 50 years was simply a lunch break for the Formicans. Meanwhile, Earth Command came to the improbable conclusion putting teenage kids in control of high-performance spacecraft would jumpstart their tactical advantage. After all, flashing a right turn signal and then turning left was a common team behavior. That and Chinese fire drills at red light. Maybe the Formicans would figure that out when they returned from their 15-year lunch break. Join us for what turned out to be not a bad film, Ender's Game from, I think it's 2013, tonight at 10:30 p.m. Even if you didn't see it, you can still come by and discuss the film. We always ask people if after they've heard our comments, would you go and see this film? And 2 hours of your life, too?
Thanks, Tom. You can keep up with all the DARC nets and activities by going to the club website, w5fc.org. So next up is Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events. So this time I'll turn the net over to Chaz, KF5JHA, if you'll give us information about the Texas Astronomical Society from KFI PDS. I can read the information if you need me to, but you had you down to call on, so I just wanted to check in with you. I'm happy to read it if you need me to. 5JHA from KFI PDS. Sorry, your comment in the chat, so I will go ahead with the information. The next Texas Astronomical Society Club meeting will be on Friday, June 23rd, and the meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas, and will also be held on Zoom. The featured speaker will be Marcus Esparza. Topic is Space Telescope Optics. Saturday night public observing sessions have begun again. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday night so that there was an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society public observing sessions. On the first Saturday of the month, stargazing is held at Fairview. On the second Saturday, the stargazing is held at Frisco. On third Saturday, stargazing is held at Cedar Hill. And on the fourth Saturday, stargazing is held in Rockwall. Tonight's stargazing was canceled due to the clouds. Or do we have a ham radio operator that's out stargazing and would like to make a report? If so, please come now with your call sign. Go ahead and close this section. Check the TAF website, texasastro.org, for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. This is KFI PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Next up is National Space Society events. Our N5BB is not on frequency tonight, but I'll go ahead and give a short blurb about the National Space Society of North Texas. The website is ntx.nss.org. The National Space Society of North Texas has an active Facebook page. Just type National Space Society of North Texas into the search box and request access. You'll receive meeting reminders and club activities. Next up is discussion topic of the evening. My topic for this evening is NASA's Psyche mission. First ever visit to a metallic asteroid of the same name, NASA's Psyche spacecraft could reveal secrets of Earth's own core and of the crashes, smashes, mergers, and acquisitions in the early days of our solar system's formation. Information can be found on solar system exploration at solarsystem.nasa.gov. Asteroid Psyche. Becoming a planet is no picnic. The competition is fierce as planetary bodies take shape inside their nursery, a star-circling ring of gas and dust. Birth throes and growing pains include smash-ups, breakups, collisions, vaporizations, and general mayhem. If you're lucky, you might end up like Earth with your metallic interior, outer crust, and atmosphere intact. If you're not, you might end up like Psyche. 140-mile-wide chunk of metal and rock belongs to our solar system's asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, and just might be a shadow of its former self. Psyche, to be visited by a NASA spacecraft of the same name, could be the partial core of a shattered planetesimal, a small world the size of a city or small country that is the first building block of a planet. Here are 10 things you should know about the Psyche mission. Number 1, exposed core. Psyche could be core material from a planetesimal. This would make it the remnant of a world that otherwise might have merged with other planetesimals to become another full-fledged planet, until multiple collisions stripped away its outer layers during our system's early formation. Number 2, a first for humanity. When it examines asteroid Psyche, the Psyche spacecraft will make humanity's first ever exploration of a world made largely of metal. Number 3, clues about Earth. Asteroid Psyche, possibly leftover core material from a planetesimal, the first building blocks of planets, could provide clues about how Earth's core came to be. Number 4, Psyche has soul. Asteroid Psyche was first discovered in 1852. At the time, only the 16th asteroid that had been detected. It is named for the Greek goddess of the soul. Number 5, futuristic communications. Psyche will test a futuristic communications system called Deep Space Optical Communication. It uses lasers to communicate with Earth instead of radio waves, encoding data in photons, which are particles of light. Number 6, looking inside. Psyche will use radio waves to measure the asteroid's gravity. Combined with maps of the asteroid's surface features or topography, this should yield clues to the asteroid's interior structure. Number 7, down to basics. Psyche's gamma ray and neutron spectrometer will get down to the basic elements, identifying levels of iron, nickel, silicon, and oxygen, and help reveal the asteroid's formation history and evolution. A magnetometer will add to the story by measuring the asteroid's magnetic field. Number 8, Psyche's eyes. A pair of high-resolution cameras on board Psyche, called the multispectral imager, will help identify the types of materials that make up the asteroid. Number 9, big as a tennis court. With its solar panels unfolded, the Psyche spacecraft will be about the size of a single tennis court. Number 10, after launching, the Psyche spacecraft will use ion propulsion, solar electric powered, to complete its 3.5-year cruise to its namesake asteroid. Here's a brief overview of NASA's Psyche mission. Some additional information, NASA's Psyche spacecraft, they were shown on nasa.gov, shows a good picture of it in the clean room in December of 2022 at Astrotech Space Operations Facility near the agency's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The spacecraft was powered on and connected to ground support equipment, enabling engineers and technicians to prepare it for launch in 2023. After a 1-year delay to complete critical testing, the Psyche project is targeting an October 2023 launch on a SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket. NASA's Deep Space Optical Communications technology demonstration testing high data rate laser communications is integrated into the Psyche spacecraft. The silver-colored cylinder shown in the photo is the sunshade for DSOC, and the gold blanketing is the aperture cover for the DSOC payload. The spacecraft's target is a unique metal-rich asteroid, also named Psyche, which lies in the main asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Visible in the high-gain antenna, which will enable the spacecraft to communicate with Earth. So we'll be watching to see as this mission unfolds and watch for preparations, and hopefully they'll stay on target for the October 2023 launch. There's information about NASA's Psyche mission. Again, this can be found at nasa.gov and solarsystem.nasa.gov. This is KFI's PDF, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. At this time, I'm going to turn the net back over to Tom, KE5ICX, and if you'll do another check-in round, see if we have some folks that have joined us that would like to check in. And let me check with Taz. Are you going to be reading your Was Up segment?
Okay, this is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray. I'll take additional check-ins at this point. If you would like to join us, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from.
Kilo, India, 5, Juliet, Charlie, Mike, KI5, JCM, Thomas and Euless.
Kilo India 5, Uniform, Juliet, Dustin, Mobile, and Dallas.
All right, we picked up two more. We've got KI5JCM, Thomas in Euless, and KI5UUJ, Dustin over in Dallas, and he's mobile. Anyone else, please come out. All right, hearing none, let me see. I will turn this over to Chaz, KF5JHA. Chaz, hopefully he says he's got his transmit problem solved. Let's find out. Chaz, go ahead with your presentation from KE5ICX.
Because it's all about what's going on astronomically over the next couple of weeks. Slide Master, that would be Tom. Slide Master, slide number 2, please. A new supernova, we talked about this last week on this net, new supernova SN 2023 IXF has been found in the Messier Object 101. This picture, if you're looking at the video version, was taken yesterday by Elliot Herman in Arizona. It seems that the supernova is its brightness. We can stay about at its current brightness level for a little while before beginning to fade. So it should be visible in most moderate-sized amateur telescopes, but you do need a telescope probably 8 inches or larger in order to see it. Hey, slide master, slide number 3, please. Today, May the 27th is the first quarter stage of June the 3rd is full moon. June the 6th is at Perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 861 kilometers. The 25th, the moon is at Apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest from the Earth at a distance of 404,509 decimal days. Oh well. Master, slide number 4. On May the 30th, Venus is in conjunction with the bright star Pollux for the constellation of Gemini and the sky. It was Monday or Tuesday evening. The moon was to Pollux, Venus was underneath. It looked like a wonderful sight. So this is another conjunction that you can take a look at. Number 5, on June the 2nd, Mars and M44, the Beehive star cluster is in conjunction in the western evening sky in the constellation of Actually, Mars is going through M44, so that'll be interesting. If you're an astrophotographer, try to get a snap shot of that. Flight Master, flight number 6. On June the 4th, Mercury and the planet Uranus are in conjunction in the eastern, northeastern morning sky. You'll need a pair of binoculars in order to see the Master, flight number 7. 2 mornings later, on June the 6th, Mercury and the asteroid Vesta will be in conjunction in the east. Binoculars, probably a telescope to view Vesta. Slide number 8, after midnight, but before sunrise on June the 9th, the Moon and Saturn will be in conjunction. Find them in the east, southeastern sky before 3 a.m. and then the southern sky before dawn. Master slide number 9, please. Morning twilight of June the 11th. In the east, southeastern sky, you can spot the conjunction of the Pleiades. That's also known as M44, and that's Mercury in the early morning sky. Mercury is going by several different things. Master flight number 10, June the 11th, the Moon and the planet Neptune will be in conjunction. Now you actually need a telescope to find Neptune. It's faint enough, you can't see with binoculars. You really can't see with your eyes. 5K, changes to Skynet. Flight Master, flight number 11, please. Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting. We talked about this earlier. It's going to be on Friday, June the 23rd at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas, and also held on Zoom. So as far as that, it will be the future, because space telescope optics that we see in space. The observing sessions have begun, but it's been cloudy weather a lot recently. You can't see the weather now. Slide Master. Slide number 12, please. Do any of you out there in Radioland have a question or need a fill on any information? Or have a general astronomy question? Come now with your close sign if you have a question or need a fill. Hearing anything. So as the moon waned about 2 weeks ago, so did these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live right now. And until next time, actually I'll be doing another. Looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5 JHA backdoor net control. It was for the next step.
Thanks very much, Chaz. Glad you're working okay, and hope things are doing well up there in Ohio. This is KF5 PDF, Billy, your net control for this session of RC Skynet. All right, next up is space exploration and space history. I think that was Brenda, but it was very scratchy. So, yeah, I was getting ready to turn the net over to you. Are you ready, Brenda, or do you need to wait a minute before again?
Why don't you come back to me? Having trouble pulling up this document. I'm sorry. WD507.
Yeah, Tom said he could read the segment, and we can come back to you for the next part for your other segment later. So, Tom, why don't you go ahead and read space exploration and space history, and then I'll try and call on Brenda again when her other segment comes around. So this is the KE5ICX from KF5 TDS.
Yeah, thank you, Miss Billy. Brenda's in the process of moving. We took her antenna down this past week, so she's not in the best of reception right now or transmission. But this is what she has for space exploration news, and that is SpaceX. A SpaceX capsule carrying a decorated former NASA astronaut and 3 paying customers linked up with the International Space Station on Monday, kicking off a historic week-long mission for the crew. After launching from Florida on Sunday afternoon, the crew spent about 16 hours aboard their Crew Dragon spacecraft as it maneuvered towards the space station, which orbits 250 miles above the Earth. The spacecraft officially docked with the space station at 9:12 a.m. Eastern Time. The mission, called AX-2, was put together by Houston-based company Axiom Space and marks the second all-private mission to the orbiting outpost, meaning it's being carried out by commercial companies rather than by the government. NASA is seeking industry proposals for the next generation LTV, or Lunar Terrain Vehicle, that will allow astronauts to go further and conduct more science than ever before and explore the southern region of the moon during the Artemis mission. The Artemis astronauts will drive to explore and sample more of the lunar surface using the LTV than they could on foot. NASA will contract LTV as a service from industry rather than owning the rover. Contracting services from industry partners allows NASA to leverage commercial innovation and provide the best value to U.S. taxpayers while achieving its human spaceflight, scientific, and exploration goals. The LTV will function like a cross between an Apollo-style lunar rover and the Mars-style uncrewed rover, which will support phases driven by astronauts and phases as an uncrewed mobile science exploration platform, similar to NASA's Curiosity and Perseverance Mars rovers. This will enable continued performance in science, even when crews are not present on the lunar surface. Artemis astronauts will use the LTV to traverse the lunar surface and transport scientific equipment, extending the distances they can cover on each moonwalk. Final pair of NASA's Tropics time-resolved observation of precipitation structure and storm intensity with the constellation of small sats are in orbit after successfully and on the 26th. Completing the constellation, Tropics launched aboard an Electron rocket from Rocket Lab's Launch Complex at 1 Pad B at Naya, New Zealand. The small sats were developed at deployed at 12:20 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Signal for the first CubeSat was acquired at 1:16 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time and 2:19 for the second Tropics, as a constellation of 4 identical CubeSats designed to observe tropical cyclones in a unique inclined low Earth orbit over Earth's tropics, and an orbit that allows them to travel over any given storm about once an hour. Current weather tracking satellites have a timing of about once every 6 hours. Next we have space-related birthdays, starting with Robert C. Springer, an astronaut. He was born on May 21st, 1942. He flew on STS-29 and STS-39. Next we have Robert Parrish. He was born May 24th, 1951. He flew on STS-35 and STS-67. Then we have John D. Olivas. He was born on May 25th, 1965. He was on STS-117 and STS-128. Here's a name everybody should recognize. Sally Ride was born on May 25th, 1951. She was on STS-7 and STS-41G. Now, this week in space history was Kennedy's moon speech. On May 25th, 1961, President John F. Kennedy announced before a special joint session of Congress the dramatic and ambitious goal of sending an American safely to the moon before the end of the decade. He wanted to announce the program that the U.S. had a strong chance of achieving before the Soviet Union. After consulting with Vice President Johnson, NASA Administrator James Webb, and other officials, he concluded that landing an American on the moon would be a very challenging technological feat, but an era of space exploration in which the U.S. actually had a potential lead. Thus, the Cold War was the primary contextual lens through which many historians now view Kennedy's speech. On May 26, 1983, the European Space Agency launched its first X-ray observatory into space. The spacecraft was called EXOSAT, which stands for European X-ray Observatory Satellite. The mission was entirely devoted to studying the universe by looking exclusively at X-ray radiation. Human eyes aren't capable of seeing light in the X-ray wavelengths. By looking for X-rays using satellites and telescopes, astronomers can locate and study high-energy sources of radiation. This includes supernovas, active galactic nuclei, galaxy clusters, black holes, neutron stars, white dwarfs, and binary stars. And we covered this, but a little bit last week, but of course there was the Skylab 2 mission, which launched 50 years ago this week. Skylab's first space station and first crewed research laboratory in space lifted off on May 14, 1973. Skylab enabled research in several areas, including astronauts' physiological responses to long-duration spaceflight, earth sciences, and solar physics and astronomy, with additional experiments in materials processing. During launch, Skylab lost its micrometer-edge shield that also provided thermal protection. Debris from the shield jammed one of its power-generating solar array wings, and it lost the other wing completely. Managers delayed the launch of the Skylab 2 crew of Commander Charles P. Conrad, pilot Paul Weitz, and science pilot Joe Kerwin. As engineers devise plans to save the overheating and underpowered space station. The trio launched on May 25th, inspected the station fully docked. The next day, they erected a sunshade over the station to lower the temperature. And that's it from here, Miss Billy. Back to you from KE5ICX.
Tom. All right, next up is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. This time I will return the net to Chad. F5JHA, the net is yours.
Master, slide number 14, please. Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent E. Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet almost beginning in 2012 until May of 2019 with a detailed look at one particular constellation. There are about 52 easily visible throughout the year as the UV film section. Miss Carolyn covers the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. In her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Virgo, the Maiden. All right, slide master, slide number 15. This is what lots of people are waiting for tonight. Interesting little jokes I've come up with. I'm not actually married, but the first joke says, I love being married, ... That's until on the rest of that. To find a lady to annoy for the rest of your life. Okay, remember, these are jokes. Okay. Excellent. A lady asked the bank teller to check her balance. So the teller pushed on her and knocked her over. These were good. did the lady fall down the well? And the last one. I gave my seat to the lady on the bus and ... I want to fill in the blank with them. Say I lost my job. Masters, slide number 16. Virgo can easily be found by using the Big Dipper. Follow the arc of the handle of the Big Dipper to the star Arcturus in the constellation of Bode. Then continue the arc to spy the star called Psyche. Psyche is the brightest star in the constellation of Virgo. I'm not going to talk about Psyche because Virgo is famous for its galaxies. Virgo is so many galaxies, you could spend hours describing a few of them. Masters, slide number 17, please. The constellation of Virgo is the center of the closest large cluster of galaxies to us, and it can easily take up several evenings of observing time. If you're looking at the video version of Skynet, like on YouTube, the little red ellipses you see are galaxies. Those are just the bright ones. There are thousands of galaxies in this area. In cases, it's difficult to move a whole telescope view for galaxies, not just one or two. A good star atlas is a must in this region for identifying the galaxies visible in third atmosphere. Well, I'm only going to describe some of the galaxies visible in the telescope. I encourage all of you to try navigating this area if you have a telescope. It would be hard not to come through this really good challenge head on. Just recently, back in March, went through this area of the objects that are installed last week. Masters, slide number 18, please. Spiral galaxies in this crystal shape oriented northeast to southwest in this broadly concentrated center. There is a relatively bright star nearby to the west of this galaxy. Master slide number 19. M61. This galaxy is a face-on spiral about 6 minutes by 4 minutes, oriented northeast to south-southwest. It's fairly even brightness, except the stellar nucleus some faint modeling on its eastern side. Slide master, slide number 20. M84 and M86, these relatively bright galaxies are very similar in appearance and are visible in our field of view. They are both considered spiral galaxies with no visible arms. 84 is round, about 3 minutes in diameter, and a large 1 minute diameter core stellar nucleus. M86 is larger, about 4 minutes in diameter, and fainter, and is also slide master, slide number 21, please. 87. Oh, it's a very bright galaxy, about 4 minutes in diameter, with a large core and a non-stellar nucleus. It's an elliptical galaxy, which is usually this galaxy. Slide master, slide number 22. M104, the Sombrero galaxy. I'd saved the best for last. This is one of the finest showpiece objects of the sky. This edge-on galaxy is 10 minutes by 2 minutes of arc, oriented east-west, and has an obvious central bulb and a distinct dark line running underneath the length of the galaxy. This object is missed. Sometimes it's called the black-eyed galaxy because it almost looks like a 5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 23, please. There are a lot more astronomical league observing objects in the constellation of Virgo. Lots of them are galaxies. I've just given you a sampling of some of those objects, and the Astronomical League has, at last count, 75 different observing programs. But I got information last night that they're adding at least 2 more. Wow. Now, most of these observing programs have about 100 objects in them. So, if you observe 10 different objects in an observing program. Each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pin in about a year from the Astronomy League. Master's Flight number 24. That is the Carolyn constellation of the Virgo, the Meat. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for their research and words on objects that I use, borrow, and use wherever Skynet. Sometimes use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Until next time, I'll take a look at Libra, the scales. And thank all of you for putting up with me. I'm on Echolink tonight because I'm in the beautiful downtown area of Flossmoor, Ohio. KF5, JHA, sending it back to our net control, Billy. KF5, PDS, it's all yours. 73, everyone.
Thank you very much, Chaz. And Echolink worked great tonight. So thank you for all your reports. Yes has a lot of beautiful music, and Sombrero Galaxy is one of my favorites. All right, next up is space launches for this week. So again, I will return the net to Tom, KE5ICX. Tom, if you wouldn't mind doing a quick check-in round, see if there's anyone on frequency to check in, and then you can do your report on space launches for the week. So this is to KE5ICX from KF5PDS.
Thank you again, Miss Billy, and this is KE5ICX. I'll take additional check-ins. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you are transmitting from. Okay, hearing none, I will go ahead and do my little segment here, which is space launches for this week. I get this information from two different sources, Space Coast Launches, that's spacecoastlaunches.com, and the one my preferred one is spaceflightnow.com. So, we have coming up on May 29th, a launch from Satish Dhawan Space Center in Sriharikota, India. This will be an Indian geosynchronous satellite launch vehicle Mark II rocket designated GSLV F-12 will launch the NVS-01 navigation satellite for the Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System, or the also called Navigation with Indian Constellation, or NAV-IC. The spacecraft is also known as IRNSS-1J, and this is the first in the second generation fleet of Indian navigation satellites. May 29th, 30th, overnight, will be a launch of Shenzhou 16 on a long March 2F from Jiuquan, China. The March 2F rocket will launch the Shenzhou 16 spacecraft with 3 Chinese astronauts to rendezvous and dock with the Chinese space station low Earth orbit. This is China's 11th crewed space mission and the 5th as of yet. Overnight, May 30th, 31st, will be a Starlink 2-10 launch on Falcon 9. This will be from SLC-4E at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. The Starlink V1.5 Internet satellite launch will deploy the satellites into a high inclination orbit inclined about 70 degrees to the equator. The Falcon 9's first stage booster will land on a drone ship in the Pacific Ocean. On June 1st, another Falcon 9 launch, Starlink 6-4. This one from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral. The SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch another batch of approximately 22 second-generation Starlink V2 mini internet satellites. The Falcon 9 first stage booster will land on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. June 3rd, Falcon 9 launch, SpaceX CRX-28. This will be Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy. It will launch Dragon 2 spacecraft on a cargo resupply mission to the International Space Station. Falcon 9's first stage booster will land on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. Flight is the 28th mission by SpaceX conducted under the commercial resupply services contract with NASA. June 8th will be a Falcon 9 launch from SLC-4E at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. It will launch the Transporter 8 mission, a ride-share flight to the sun-synchronous orbit with numerous small microsatellites and nano-satellites for commercial and government customers. Then we have on June 9th, following day, another Falcon 9, this one from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral. This will be the third pair of O3B M-Power broadband internet satellites into medium Earth orbit for SES of Luxembourg. The satellites built by Boeing will provide internet services over most of the populated world, building on SES's O3B network. The Falcon 9's first stage booster will land on a drone ship in the Pacific Ocean. Another launch, June, we don't know exactly when, a Falcon 9. This is from SLC-4E at Vandenberg. The Falcon 9 rocket will launch 8 Trank T0 demonstration satellites from the U.S. military's Space Development Agency. The launch is the second of 2 Falcon 9 missions to carry SDA demonstration spacecraft for a future constellation of military missile tracking and data relay satellites. The Falcon 9's first stage booster will return to landing zone 4 at Vandenberg. And we have another one to be determined, the Worldview Legion 1 and 2. You guessed it, it's going to be a Falcon 9 rocket. We'll launch a pair of Worldview Legion Earth observation satellites for Maxar Technologies. They plan to deploy 6 commercial Worldview Legion high-resolution remote sensing satellites into a mix of sun-synchronous and mid-inclination orbits on 3 SpaceX Falcon 9 rockets. The first stage of the Falcon 9 will return to landing zone 4 at Vandenberg Space Force Base for landing. And I've got actually something other than SpaceX. We've got an Ariane 5 launching the Syracuse 4B Heinrich Hertz satellite. This is designated VA-260, will launch from Conroe, French Guiana on ELA-3. To launch the Syracuse 4B and Heinrich Hertz communications satellites. Syracuse 4B, built by Airbus, will relay secure communications between French military aircraft and ground vehicles and naval vessels, including submarines. The Heinrich Hertz satellite, built by OHB, will test new communication technologies on a mission funded by the German government. This will be the final launch of an Ariane 5 rocket. And then finally, on June 17th, oh my goodness, it's another Falcon 9 launch. SLC-40, Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. This will be the Satria communication satellite for the Indonesian government and the Indonesian satellite operator PSN. The Satria satellite will provide broadband internet communication capability for schools, hospitals, and other public use facilities in Indonesia's rural regions. The satellite was built by Thales Alenia Space and is based on the Spacebus Neo platform. And that's it for me. I can also take Brenda's next section if you'd like. This is KE5 ICX back to net control.
Yes, Tom, that's affirmative. Why don't you go ahead and read her segment if she doesn't have an antenna up, because it was very, very scratchy and barely readable. I'm going ahead and reading an astronomical discovery segment here. I'd appreciate it. So this is back to you, Tom, KE5 ICX from KF5P.
All right, very good. I will do that. This comes from astrobiology.com, and this is, let me see here, I got to pull this baby up. It says, astronomers discover a key planetary system to understand the formation mechanism of the mysterious super-Earth. The system, named TOI 2096, consists of 2 planets orbiting a cool star. I guess it's just cold, not cool as in, really great, in a synchronized dance at approximately 150 light years from Earth. This is what it says. It says a study led by researchers at the University of Liège and the CSIC using observation from NASA's TESS telescope presents a detection of the system of two planets slightly larger than Earth orbiting a cold star in synchronized dance. TOI 2096, the system is located 150 light years from Earth. The discovery is the result of close collaboration between European and American universities and is made possible by the U.S. space mission TESS, which is Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, which aims to find planets orbiting nearby bright stars. TESS is conducting an all-sky survey using the transit method, that is, monitoring the stellar brightnesses of thousands of stars in search for a slight dimming, which could be caused by a planet passing between the star and the observer. However, despite its power to detect new worlds, the TESS mission needs support from ground-based telescopes to confirm the planetary nature of the detected signals, explains Francisco Coliseos, astrophysicist and first author of the paper, former member of the Exotic Laboratory at the University of Liege, who is now joined in the Spanish National Research Council. The planets TOI 2096 and, well, it says the same thing. 2096B and C were observed with an international network of ground-based telescopes allowing their confirmation and characterization. The majority of the transits were achieved or obtained with telescopes of the TRAPPIST and the Speculus projects led by the University of Liege. Making exhaustive analysis of the data, we found that two planets were in resonant orbits. For each orbit of the outer planet, the inner planet orbits the star twice, says Aside Timmermans, a doctoral student at the Exotic Lab in Liege, and the second author of the scientific paper. Their periods are therefore very close to being the multiple of each other, with about 3.12 days for planet B and about 6.38 days for planet C. This is a very particular configuration. It causes a strong gravitational interaction between the planets. This interaction delays or accelerates the passage of the planets in front of their star and could lead to the measurement of the planetary masses using larger telescopes in the near future. The researchers behind the discovery estimate the radius of planet B and the closest to its star is 1.2 times that of Earth, and the name super-Earth. Its properties could be similar to Earth, a planet with a mostly rocky composition, possibly surrounded by a thin atmosphere. Similarly, the radius of planet C is 1.9 times the radius of Earth and 55% that of Neptune, which could place the planet in the category of mini-Neptune planet, composed of rocky and icy core surrounded by an extended hydrogen or water-rich atmospheres such as Uranus and Neptune in our solar system. These sizes are very interesting because the number of planets with a radius of 1.5 and 2.5 Earth radii is smaller than what theoretical models predict. The formation of super-Earths and mini-Neptunes remains a mystery today. There are several formation models trying to explain it, but none fits the observations perfectly. TOA 2096 is the only system found to date that has a super-Earth and a mini-Neptune precisely at the sizes where the models contradict each other. In other words, TOI 2096 may be a system that we've been looking for to understand how these planetary systems have formed. Therefore, these planets are among the best in their category to study their possible atmospheres, explains Coliseos. Thanks to the relative sizes of the planets with respect to the host star as well as the brightness of the star, we find that this system is one of the best candidates for detailed study of their atmosphere with the James Webb Space Telescope. We hope to be able to do this quickly by coordinating with other universities and research centers. These studies will help confirm the presence of an atmosphere, extensive or not, around the planets B and C, and thus give us clues as to their formation mechanism. And this came from, again, Science. This was actually from ScienceDaily.com. It's available there if you want to read up on it. Really, it's a great source of interesting science articles each and every day involving health, tech, environmental, society, and quirky news items. Back to you, Miss Billy. This is KE5 ICX.
Tom. All right, next up is visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. So, Tom, I will give you a break, and I will cover these. You can use the www.heavens-above.com to find out what's in orbit and where to look during flyovers. Information comes to us from heavensabove.com. First up is ISS, the International Space Station visible passages. I'm just going to read out some of the brightest ones. Just remember, when you look at this, the brightness or magnitude, the smaller the number, the brighter the object. So if it's got a negative magnitude, it is very bright. Looking at the next few days, some of the brightest, there's one tomorrow night. It's a brightness of negative 1.7. That's at 2200 local time, so 10 p.m. These are done up from Louisville, Texas, but you can put in your own GPS or see, and you can get these times for your location as well. At 10 p.m., 10 degrees north-northwest, at the highest point at 10:03 p.m., and ends at 10:04 p.m. The bright one on May 30th, negative 3. That one's going to start at 21:59 local time, so 9:59 p.m., and that's going to be 10 degrees northwest. We'll reach highest point at 10:02 p.m., 50 degrees northeast, and we'll end at 10:03 p.m. And then there's a super bright one on June 2nd that'll be even brighter at 3.8 negative 3.8 magnitude. So that one will be a very bright pass indeed. And so that one is at 9:10 p.m. 10 degrees northwest is where that one starts and reaches 30 degrees west at 9:13 and then ends at 9:16 p.m. So again, that one is going to be a negative 3.8, a very bright pass. Take a look at some of the Tiangong visible passages. Will not be nearly as bright, but again, I'll give you some of the brightest. On May 30th, that one will have a brightness of negative 2.1, and these are early morning, so this is 05:26, so 26 a.m., 17 degrees southwest, reaches its highest point 5:29, 72 degrees south-southeast, and ends at 5:32, 10 degrees east-northeast. Another very bright one for Tiangong is going to be June 1st, 8 magnitude, and that's at 5:05 a.m. It will begin at 26 degrees west and will end at 5:09 a.m., 10 degrees northeast. So again, these are from heavens-above.com. Just go to that website and put in your location, and you can find out what's in orbit and where to look during flyovers. At this time, I'm going to turn the net back over to Tom. If you'll do a quick check-in round, see if there's anybody on frequency who would like to check in, and then do some astronomical Q&A out there for the group. If you'll do a quick check-in round, and then KF5 PDF.
And I'll do exactly that. This is KE5ICX. So go ahead and take what will probably be our final round of check-ins. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from.
This is WB4MFI, Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike, Foxtrot, India, Ted, Dallas, low power.
W5 bacon, lettuce, tomatoes. W5 BLT Bill, Scarlet.
All right, we picked up two more. We got WB4MFI, that's Ted in Dallas, he's low power, and W5BLT, Bill over in Garland, making our check-ins 21 this evening. Back to net control. This is KE5ICX.
Copy that. We've got 21. Let's see if anybody out there has any questions. So we have time for some astronomical Q&A. So if you have a question, we have a lot of knowledgeable folks on the call tonight. So if you have a question, feel free to just let me know what your call time is, and we'll get your question answered. Question for this evening's net, please, your call time. Hearing any, are there any checked-in stations that have any additional remarks or comments or questions for this evening's net? If so, please come now with your call sign. Not hearing anything, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this evening's net. As pointed out, 21 is half of 42. Woohoo! So thank you to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the ARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. Follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. So until next Saturday night, this is KF5 TDF, Billy, and I'll be closing the net at 22:19 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 73, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. And remember, come back in about 5 minutes or so for the Afterglow movie net, where tonight we'll be discussing Teens Ender's Game. 73, everybody.
All right, thank you, Miss Billy, and this is KE5ICX. We're actually going to give you a few extra minutes. We're going to start at 10:30, so that's going to be about a little over 10 minutes from now. I got to settle down two dogs that are going absolutely crazy right now, so that'll give me the extra time. So we'll be back in about 10 minutes to discuss tonight's movie, Ender's Game. We'll see you then. This is KE5ICX for now.
Well, thanks for a great net, everybody. While I was listening to the net, I dug a trench around my lot of my perimeter fence so I can lay some PVC down to run antenna cables, and that made easy work of it. Appreciate it. Thanks again. K5 JDW.
normal state.
I'm completely operational and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net.
All right, it is that time. Time for the Afterglow Movie Net. Why? Because stayed up, decided to watch this movie, and we're going to stay up and talk about this movie. So, this week's movie is called Ender's Game. It's a 2013 American military science fiction action film. Let's throw those together. Based on Orson Scott Card's 1985 novel of the same name. It's written and directed by Calvin Hood. Film stars Asa Butterfield, Andrew Ender Wiggins, and unusually gifted child who was sent to the Advanced Military Academy in space to prepare for future alienization. Supporting cast include Harrison Ford, Haley Steinfeld, and Viola Davis, with Abigail Breslin and Ben Kingsley. The film was released in Germany on October 24, 2013, followed by a release in the UK one day later. It was released in the United States, Canada, and several other countries on November 1st, 2013. It was released in other territories on January of 2014. Ender's Game received mixed reviews from critics and was a box office bomb, grossing only $125 million on a $110, $15 million budget. All right, here is the plot. Shouldn't take too long to get through. Here's what we got. In the future, humanity is preparing to launch an attack on the home world of an alien race called the Formics that attacked Earth and killed millions. The Formic invasion was stopped by Miser Rackham, who crashed his fighter plane into the Formic Queen ship at an apparent cost of his life. Over the course of 50 years, gifted children are trained by the international fleet to become commanders of a new fleet that is counterattack. Cadet Andrew Wiggins, or Ender, draws the attention of Colonel Hiram Graffin, Major Glenn Anderson, because of his aptitude in simulated space combat, and is recruited into the battle school. Graff enters Ender to battle school and places Ender with other cadets as Dave treats him extraordinarily, thereby subjecting him to being ostracized by the others. Cadets are placed in squads to perform training games in zero-gravity battle rooms. Ender quickly adapts to the games, devising new strategies older students have not yet seen. Graff reassigns Ender to the Salamander Army, led by Commander Bonzo Madrid. Bonzo, believing that Ender's inept and a liability, prevents him from training with the rest of the squad. Another cadet, Petra, enters Ender under her wing and trains him privately. In the next match, Bonzo benches Ender, while the rest of the Salamander Army fights another team. However, seeing the team losing and Petra in trouble, Ender comes to her aid and helps Salamander Army win. Now Ender plays a computerized mind game set in a fantasy world which presents difficult choices to the player. In one situation, Ender creates an outside-the-box solution to an overcome a seemingly unsolvable problem. Later, he encounters a Fomek in the game, and then simulated images involve his siblings. These are noted as unusual additions to the game, which is seemingly altered by Ender's interaction with the computer. Graff promotes Ender to lead his own squad, which is made up of students who have gained Ender's trust. They're put in increasingly difficult battles. A surprise match between the two other teams, including Bonzo's Salamander Army. Ender devises a novel strategy of sacrificing part of his team to achieve a goal, impressing Graff. Bonzo attacks Ender in the bathroom under the match, but Ender fights back. Bonzo fails during the struggle and suffers from head injury. Distraught, Ender quits battle school, but Graff has Ender's sister, Valentine, convinced him to continue. Graff takes Ender to humanity's forward base on the former Fomek planet near their homeworld to meet with the Elder Rackham explains that the Formeks share a hive mind mentality and how he exploited it to win the battle. Ender finds that his former squad members are also there to help him train in computerized simulations of large fleet combat. Rackham puts special emphasis on the fleet's molecular detachment, or MD device, that is capable of disintegrating matter. Ender's fighting training is rigorous, and Anderson expresses concern over this, but Graff notes that they have run out of time to replace Ender. Ender's final test is monitored by several fleet commanders. As the simulation starts, Ender fights his fleet over the Fomek homeworld, vastly outnumbered. He orders most of his fleet to sacrifice themselves to prevent the MD long enough to fire on the homeworld. The resulting chain reaction burns over the surface of the planet, killing the entire population. The simulation ends, and Ender believes the test is over. The commanders restart the video screen showing that Ender's fleet activity participated in live missions and destroyed the Fomek world. Realizing he'd become a murderer for destroying the planet as well as human guilt for the Fomek, Ender storms off only to be tranquilized by staff. While asleep, Ender is awoken by the Fomek Queen and is directed to the Fomek structure nearby as being similar to the ruined castle from the game. The Queen acknowledges Ender's role in the genocide and moves to kill it, but when Ender shows remorse, she spares his life. Determined that the Fomek were only seeking a source of water and did not want conflict. The Queen gives Ender a queen egg that she has been protecting. With the war ended, Ender is promoted to Admiral, given a small ship, and left to his own devices. In a letter to Valentine, advised to be linked to deep space, determined to start a new Fomek colony with the queen egg. The end. I will now take check-ins from folks who would like to discuss this movie. By the way we'll do it is talk about the plot, followed by characterization and acting, followed by special effects, followed by anything you want to talk about. This net usually runs about 90 minutes, sometimes a little shorter, sometimes a little longer, but somehow or another it always seems to be about 90 minutes. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign, phonetically your name. Did you see Ender's Game? Come now.
No one wants to go first. November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tony in Dallas? Yes, I did.
Kilo 5. Juliet, Delta Whiskey. I did not see the movie. I'll just be hanging out in the background, Tom, and the gang, so don't call on me. K5, JDW.
Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. Brenda DeSoto. Yes, I saw it.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth. Yes, I did see this.
November Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth. Yes, I have seen this movie.
India 5, Kilo Whiskey Golf, cruise in Arlington. Yes, I saw the film.
Let me get those folks checked in. We've got NT5TM, Tony in Dallas. Yep, he saw the film. K5JDW, John, he's back home here in Dallas. He says no, he did not see the film, but that's okay, John. We'll probably call on you anyway and ask you if you want to see the film after all this. WB50ZL, Brendan DeSoto, yes, she saw the film. Signal's a little better. It's still scratchy, but I think it'll do for this net. Next up, KB9SOK, Sean, Fort Worth. Yep, you saw it. ND5F, Virginia and Fort Worth. Yep, she's seen it at some time or another. KI5KWG, Cruise in Arlington. Yes, he's seen the film. Anyone else like to join us? Echolink included. If you'd like to come, let us know that you would like to check into this net. Please come with your call sign, your name. You can give location if you like, but did you see Ender's Game?
Bacon, lettuce, whiskey 5, bacon, lettuce, tomato. CLC, Bill. Garland, yes, I saw the movie.
All right, we picked up one more. We got Bill, W5BLT over on Echolink and Garland. He says he did see the movie. All right, I'll play it by straight up. We'll go ahead and go down the list in order because Tony volunteered first. He gets to go first. So this first round, we'll go ahead and talk about the plot. Tony, what'd you think about the plot for this one? Ender's Game from, what is it, 2012, 2013? KE5 ICF.
Well, good evening and thank you, Tom. I've read the book many times, and I wanted to love this or hate it, and in the end I couldn't do either, and that's probably why it bombed, is that people didn't go out and tell other people they had a really strong reaction to it. There is a lot in that book, ethical issues and you know, kind of archetypes of this young boy growing up as a symbol of all humanity, and I can talk about that more in the character line, but it also is about plot too, because his development is really what the plot is about, as he realizes that, you know, he's being manipulated, but how and why and what does he want to be, and he has to make various choices. And of course he doesn't even really understand what the choices are because he's been lied to. And it's all of the Starship Troopers error. In Starship Troopers, they took the pretext for the book, which was this war with bugs from outer space, and made it the point of the book. Oopsie, they took the B story and made it the A story. Excuse me, they made it the point of the movie, which, okay, gave them a great CGI spectacular with loud music and lots of guns going off. And likewise, they you know, you got to have all the battle scenes in the battle room where the kids are fighting, and you have to have the war scenes in space. So they have tons and tons and tons of CGI, which I give them no credit for whatsoever, because CGI is just, it's not a special effect, it's just, it'll do whatever you tell it to, whoop-de-doo. But in order to get so much material into a 2-hour movie, they really had to neglect the character development. There is too much plot for the time they have, and they didn't spend enough time on the characters and the ethical issues to make me really care. So I can't hate it because I can't say they did it wrong, but I can't love it because I can't say they did it right. They just did stuff. And it's a surprisingly faithful adaptation of the book, of the plot of the book, but as a movie, which is a different art form, I'll give it about a C, C+. NT5TM.
Yeah, right, interesting. I was wondering, I'm glad that you've read the book. I'm going to ask you to compare and contrast a little bit, which you've already done. Very interesting. Let's see, we'll go to Brenda, WB5OZL. Brenda, what did you think about the plot for tonight's movie from KE5ICX? Thank you, Brenda. You were nearly all noise. You might want to tweak the antenna one way or the other and see if that'll help on the next round, but I couldn't make out any of that. I could hear you. I just couldn't make out what you were saying. Sorry about that. Let's see. Next up, Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, what did you think about the plot of tonight's movie, Ender's Game?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Well, I didn't read the book, which may be an advantage in this situation, because it sounds like the book might have been pretty good. So I agree with pretty much everything Tony had said. I would have probably given this a little bit better rating, maybe a C+ or B-, just because I didn't realize the book had more in it. But yeah, I think that was dead on what you said about really this story was really about the kids' development. And obviously they spent, majority of the movie trying to cover that complex, is it the right thing or not the right thing to do, the ethics, and that really is what this movie was about, more than even so much the special effects. Kind of looking at it, we've kind of seen a similar story like this before. It's not 100% original. Obviously, we've always seen the underdog work his way up and eventually beating the bully or the bad guy, and end up on top. I mean, this story's been done over and over and over. Obviously, it's a very popular trope, but what makes this one different is that this time, obviously, which is, I know it's a very heavy character, but really this is what the movie was about, was him struggling with, was he doing the right thing or was he not doing the right thing, and struggling with the side of wanting to do good, but yet still having a little bit of his brother in him, and just, that anger sometimes coming out, which obviously a young kid that would have been twisted this way is not surprising. But as far as the plausibility, yeah, there is some sense to this, because as we all know, children are like sponges, and that's when you learn the most is when you're a child. So obviously if a child was raised to do only one thing and one thing only, then it makes sense that obviously they would probably be able to adapt and outdo any adult that started learning late in life these kind of concepts. So you could kind of say, well, yeah, that's the ideal thing is possible, that obviously you could probably train kids to be better strategists. But is it right, One thing I was kind of a little bit confused about in this movie was obviously it sounded like a lot of the population of Earth got wiped out during the initial battle, but yet they were limiting people on how many kids they could have. You would think if a majority of the population got wiped out, you would be wanting people to obviously repopulate. So that part, I must have missed something there, or once again, maybe that was just a mistranslation from the book. So yeah, that could have been the case. But then too, yeah, we obviously the other part of this movie that, once again, is not original, as is already said, about the whole, the B-type mentality. We've seen this done in several movies, where obviously you got a queen of some type. You stop the queen, then you stop the rest. And in some respects, you can say it's even a little bit like Independence Day, where you take out the main ship and all the other ships are defenseless. So yeah, we've kind of seen this overdone too. I do think that they did an okay job, really, of kind of rebranding that story and kind of making it a little different, and ultimately, making the struggle between good and what was right or what's not right. So yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting. It sounds like the book would probably be even more interesting. But yeah, I would say probably C+ or B-. But it's definitely a little better than what we have seen. I think in some ways it might have been a little better than last week's movie, to where it was just last week was a lot of stuff we've seen before just kind of redone. This one had a little bit of that, but I think it was a little better constructed. Anyway, back to net. This is KB9SOK.
Very good. Thank you, Sean. Interesting observations. Next up, Virginia, NV5F. Virginia, what did you think about the plot for tonight's movie Ender's Game? The 13th. The 13th of KE5 ICX.
KE5 ICX in the net. This is NV5F. Well, couple of things. I saw this movie first time, I think it was a couple years ago. I think they had it on one of the streaming services, and I watched it, and I didn't really watch it today as much as just put it on in the background and kind of listen to it while I was doing something else, just to kind of remind me about it. So I do remember it, being kind of a heavy film, pretty heavy plot, kind of exploring what, the desensitization of children with violence, and it was a pretty violent plot. The kid suffers a lot of difficult things, and basically it's a very common story, like Sean was saying, of kind of an unwanted anti-hero who knows that he's gifted and knows that he has a lot of talent and a lot to offer and a lot of intelligence, but he feels like maybe one person, his sister, one person in the whole world gets him, but he has to go away to make his way in the universe because he washed out of school on Earth, so I thought the plot was pretty interesting for all the common threads in it, the common science fiction things. I have not read the book. I know it's a very well-known book. I have not read it though, and it's got some things that are familiar in it, and as well as the hero. It even has some things that are reminiscent of even other very popular things like Harry Potter and stuff like that. It's got that lone, misunderstood kind of orphan kid who needs to figure out why he's special, and then he turns out to be really, really special. He has some kind of connection with this alien race, and that was the working his way up, and his team beating the other team and the bullies, and that's common. Like you go to battle tactics school or Hogwarts or wherever it is you're going, you have those kind of experiences, and that's a plot that we all can kind of identify with, especially if we're nerds. You kind of have that thing deep down inside you, where you just know that you are special and you are capable, and you have some great purpose, and it's about just not giving up. And even though he's angry, kind of fighting his anger at being misunderstood and sticking in there, but then he gets tricked and used, and deep down the whole point is that no matter how angry he is and no matter how violent he expresses that, he knows deep down what good is, and he is he does want to do the right thing. And I thought the little plot twist at the end where he ends up having this connection with the queen alien and decides that he's going to go and make good. I thought that was pretty interesting. And like I said, I don't have the book to compare it to. If I'd read the book, I might think, I don't like this at all. But it's a pretty dark, heavy thing, and I think they did it to where you like the kid and you're rooting for him, and it's kind of cool to have Harrison Ford in there and some other really well-known people. And I know this was a very kind of a classic book they were making, and I'm sure they wanted it to be something more universal and well received. But it's hard to tell in the style, I think, that they do these plots now versus how they did them maybe 30 years ago. The style is so it's almost hyper real. It takes that angst and kind of anger and dreariness, and it makes it seem so deeply hopeless. Instead of, kind of, this guy's having a hard time, and leaving that a little more on the surface for the audience, it makes it so deep and so resonant, with our own struggles and misunderstood feelings, that it can just be hard to, be like, oh yeah, that was a great movie, I'm going to tell my friends to go see it, because I really felt good when I left the theater, so it's not one of those feel-good plots, but it is I think it's a pretty interesting plot, and it definitely touches a lot of things, and I tend to be pretty I'm not saying I'm super easy to please, but I can kind of see all the different angles they're coming at and what they were going for, and I guess I go on that. So I liked this kid, I liked the character, I felt for him, I rooted for him. I'm glad he decided to do the right thing at the end, and I also feel very deeply for just what a lonely path he chose to do the right thing. He had to choose a difficult, lonely path, and that's how life can feel sometimes, and I understand that very well. Anyway, that's it for me. K5ICX in V5F.
Thank you, Virginia. And next up is Cruz, KI5KWG. Cruz, your thoughts on the plot for Ender's Game from KE5ICX.
KI5KWG. This gets a thumbs down from me. I don't think I was really inclined to think much of it from the beginning. After it was over, I went and read the Wikipedia article on it and had an aha moment, I think, on that. It looked like they had a really great novel to start with. I'd never read it, never heard of it. Looked like they had grand designs for it. But every step of the way in reading that wiki article, whatever their first thoughts were, ended up falling through, and it was plan B after plan B after plan B. And I said, that defines the film. It defines the script, it defines the acting, it describes the continuity. It was always just barely adequate, if even that, all the way through. So that was my general impression. Relationships don't work the way they portrayed them, especially not with, 12, 13-year-old kids. The woman psychologist, the major, I can't remember what her last name was, so concerned about the child and what damage they could do to his psyche. And I'm like, but the whole point of what they're doing is trying to give him a messiah complex. How's that going to work out? So I didn't really care for this. I think they could have done more on the telepathy between the aliens and the humans. If that was going to, it was a kind of a plot twist. But if that was really something, then it seems like to me they should have figured that out a long time before. So I think that's what I've got on the plot. Didn't care for it. KI5 KWG, back to net.
All right, thank you, Cruz. Well, interesting. We're getting some differing opinions here. Well, let's continue on. Bill, W5DLC. Bill, what did you think about the plot for this movie from KE5ICS?
This is kind of weird. I was disturbed by the movie. I started reading the book. The book much better. It actually takes off 6 years old. And so I like that. I was disturbed by when they removed the implant. That was disturbing. The whole playground thing and the one kid with him kicking the kid, and then the shower scene with the fight and things like that. It was a very disturbing movie, but yet it had, I think, a lot of points of, where do we draw the line? And, you're teaching young kids and eventually young adults in the military. And it brought a lot of interesting moral dilemmas. So from that standpoint, I like the movie and I'm liking the book. It kind of had, to me, a sort of a Hunger Games feel to it. And of course, we've mentioned the Chip Troopers, and there was another one that it reminded me of a little bit too. Harrison Ford's character was, we're kind of used to seeing Harrison Ford as a good guy. And wasn't really in that in this movie, so that was interesting. It's not one that I would go see again and again. It's not like a Star Wars or Indiana Jones or, any of those. And, there's some science fiction movies you just want to see over and over again. And then there's others that I'm kind of glad I watched it, but I don't want to watch it again. It's kind of like the one on the beach or whatever it was, the science fiction movie we watched where everybody in Australia was waiting for the nuclear fallout. But yeah, we've seen this plot. Like I said, I'm glad I watched it. It gave me a lot to think about. It's not one that I would sit down and joyfully watch again with a bowl of popcorn. W5DLC.
All right, very good, Bill. Thank you. Interesting. Okay, sort of middle of the road on yours. Any additional check-ins before I make my comment? If you'd like to join us, please come to your call sign, your name, and did you see tonight's movie, Ender's Game, 2013? Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and make my comment. Majority here, and I didn't have a joyful, geez, this is the greatest movie since sliced bread moment at all. I thought it was adequate for what it was going to do. I kind of set the bar lower. I figured that an adolescent film like this would probably be kind of superficial and stupid. Turned out to not be that. I did find it interesting that this was a book, and I did read the thing on it and realized that it was designed for adolescent children, which is fine. I think I would like to have read the book just to see how this played out, what I was missing. Shouldn't surprise me. So I thought overall that it was quite, it was engaging. There were some parts about it that didn't make any sense to me. One of them is more practical. Why on earth do we need to launch them into space to be able to test them in their wargame skills? three-dimensional thing, I suppose. They seem to be able to do all sorts of, simulations. Why would we need that to do this in sort of form of that big kind of wasting space station and gigantic with lots of air and lots of glass and all sorts of things that you'd have to heat and cool and be able to run, and yet there's nothing there to interfere with it. There's no cold, there's no heat, there's no problem. And do your thing and you're done. It's like going to Disneyland or something. That kind of bothers me a little bit. And sure, we'll just launch them on a spaceship. There's one going every other minute. And they could meet up at the station and do the things they need to do. There's also another practical point of it is that they go to the planet. How far is this planet away? How long does it take to get there? It doesn't seem to matter because time doesn't pass. We get in the spaceship, we head there. There's got to be multiple years involved, but apparently not. We just show up. It's like, not even a day trip. You just get in intergalactic vehicle and head to the planet. Everybody's refreshed. Nobody has a 5 o'clock shadow. None of that. We're ready to rock and roll. The parts with the kids, somewhat fabricated, but as I remember, there was a lot of angst and stupid stuff that was going on. Having gone through stupid stuff this past week with my family, I understand. Stupid stuff happens all the time, and in this case, it happened. So I didn't mind it so much. It seemed to make sense. I felt, though, that it took a while to get to where they were going with the story. And maybe the interaction could have been done in a more smart way. Maybe, I don't know. The twist at the end was interesting, and I wasn't expecting that, I guess. Or was I, because we were running out of time and something was up close to the end and it was still going on. But the remorse and their experience I thought was quite interesting, and it kind of made sense. It made me feel for the alien bugs, but then again, communications was kind of terrible anyway. Then I think about my work and communications is something good. So maybe with aliens, things that occur. People I work with are kind of buggy anyway. So that's my ramblings out loud. I don't have anything deep philosophical to say, except that I think the kids experiencing what they experience. The premise that they would come up with an idea of being able to come up with different strategies. Not a bad premise. We've discussed that as children growing up, they have a tendency to be suppressed. Creative ideas are removed. You have to be compliant in return. Imagine if this gets into these drones and clones of what they're supposed to be later on, and it causes all sorts of issues. So I guess that has something to do with it as well. So that's my ramblings out loud. I think it could have been better. I would give this one probably a B-. I would give it a B-. I could be a little more generous than others, I suppose. But I didn't think it was all that bad. Would I watch it again? Probably not. I get it. Maybe if their sequel were made or something like that, I might consider it. All right, well, that's it for me on that. Let us talk about characterization and the acting. So we'll go to the top of the list, and that would be Tony, NT5TM. Tony, what did you think of characterization on this film? And since you saw the film, I'd be very curious to see what you have to say about or read the book, how that would compare and square up with the movie from KE5 on ICX. Go ahead, Tony.
Well, thank you. It's kind of interesting in the book because Orson Scott Card has this kind of, every author has their thing. Isaac Asimov wrote tons of murder mysteries, and he liked writing books about robots with the 3 laws of robotics and so on. Orson Scott Card liked writing books about kind of tortured, suffering children who had to save the world. That was kind of his thing. And this is certainly a book in that genre. But, of course, books have a lot more time to play with. You can stop and think, and you can reread things. And it's hard to get a lot of that world building across in a movie. A touch I forgot to mention in the first round, something I did like was when they pull that telepathic monitoring device out of his head and they say, "This won't hurt a bit," and of course they just rip it out and he screams. It kind of foreshadows, nice little hint that the grown-ups have all been lying to him anyway. So yeah, I don't know if that's really foreshadowing, if it's just a nice indication that he couldn't trust people really even then. The characters are really what the book is about. His brother and sister are almost like shoulder angels because he's supposed to represent the perfect balance between them in this big societal genetic engineering experiment. And so the movie, it had a really tough challenge, and I don't want to insult them, and yet people have mentioned that it was stuck in development hell for a very long time. And they sure did try. But characterization to me is the main area where the movie fell short. And like the plot, they sure did try. As a side note, Todd, towards some of the things you said in the book, some of those things confuse the characters too. It becomes obvious to the kids that it's like, why are we even on a space station? We have some secret technology that can control gravity, because they realize as they walk from like the corridor to the room, why does it suddenly become 0G when we walk from a hallway into the battle room? Why are there so many different battle rooms? There's always one free when you need one. It's like it's the battle room of requirement. They begin to conclude that these things are in space largely just to hide them and to keep them away from their families, which is probably true. Ender and Petra and Bean and Ali and some of the, and Bernard, they gave us some of his core characters. We got to see Mazer, but I don't feel they made me I don't feel they let me get to know them enough. I don't feel they made me care about them enough. There was just, I don't know, too much plot, not enough time, too many characters, not enough time. Maybe they subtly picked the wrong incidents, but I didn't care about the characters as much as I felt I should, and that's what had stopped it for me from being an A movie. Because in the book, you sure did worry about the people and feel some of their confusion. In the movie, I was engaged. I watched it all the way through with pleasure, but that intensity of caring just wasn't there. So I'm rambling because I'm talking hoping I'll stumble across a gem and explain what they did wrong, and I'm not. So I should stop talking now and say just the characters didn't quite work for me, but they sure tried hard. NT5TM.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Let's see here. Brenda said she wants to sit this one out mainly because her signal was so poor. Looking at the back channel stuff, she said nothing except about one of the possible characters that she's going to play on one of the Star Wars movies. Let's see. Okay, let me move on to Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, tell us about characterization on this film from KE5ICX.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Once again, it might have been an advantage not seeing the book for the characters as well, because otherwise, probably have higher expectations. I may sometime put this on the list of books to read at some point. Kind of covered really a lot of the first round, but obviously, this was clearly about Ender, at the end of the day, about, how he was brought up and his struggles back and forth. And I do kind of feel that, I get everybody's frustration on some of this, just because it does feel like there was places things were kind of almost skipped or fast-forwarded. But I do think they did an okay job of explaining his struggle. Kind of hearing about the constant rewrites and going with Plan B kind of makes some sense actually now. After hearing that they were kind of going with their secondary thoughts to try to get that across. And really, yeah, unfortunately, wasn't a lot of other character development other than really him. You really don't find out much about his brother, other than his brother failed and was extremely angry. Other than that, that's really about all we know. We don't know a lot about his parents, other than maybe they were somewhat disappointed with him. And this was some great hope that I'm not sure what the family gets if their kid turns out to be picked, and why it was so important to them to be the family with the one kid. So once again, I'm guessing that's something within the book. Yeah, and I do agree. It almost feels like these characters needed more time to bake. But at the same time, I would have hated for this movie to be 3 hours long, because it did seem like it was very heavily character, because we get at the end of the day, that's really what that was about, because we didn't have a whole lot of scenes. We've seen his house, we've seen the school, we've seen the space station, so there wasn't a lot of area to really cover, or a lot of other story to tell other than Ender's. I mean, obviously it's got his name in it, but yeah, once again, we don't find out much about, the girl that helps him, how she ended up there, or, why she all wants to feel bad for him and wanted to help him out. That was all just like, instant kind of thing. So it does feel like they did skip some spots. But I do feel, I hadn't read the book. I do think that they did cover what Ender was going through pretty well and why he was struggling with it. So I thought they did a fair job with him, and I found it interesting. And, but as far as like the rest of the family, not a whole lot there. And as far as, obviously Harrison Ford's part, I get, his part of it. Obviously a former commander, his concern was just trying to save the planet. So he was willing to literally do anything. But then again, you go back to that old trope of, is it worth giving up humanity to save humanity? Who knows what we would really do if we found ourselves in that situation. So you kind of get why he was so driven, why he was willing to really push the kid beyond. The psychiatrist, she was kind of interesting, but I thought her part was weird as well. Because, she acted like she felt for these kids, but in some way she was just torturing them in another way with some of these mind games. So it was very strange on that part of it. and it does seem like the character, the hero, the original hero, I don't remember his name, that supposedly saved us the first time, his part seemed a little bit rushed and forced as well. We find out what really happened, but we don't really find out much about his backstory. So yeah, I think the character, as far as the acting goes, I think they did a pretty good job acting, actually, with what they had to work with. I think the kid who played Ender did really well. I think the supporting roles did pretty well. I thought Harrison Ford did okay in this. It's not his best, but I thought he did decent. And I do feel like the acting was okay. And I do feel like, there was some development in Indoors, but the rest of the characters I felt that was a little lacking. But I do agree with everybody's comment. I'm glad I watched this, but yeah, I don't know that I would watch it again, just because, you don't feel great afterwards. But I'm glad we watched it, because it does make you think more afterwards than when you actually watch the film. But sometimes it's good. So, yeah, once again, I would stick with the B-. So, yeah, back to that, KB9, that's okay.
Thank you, Sean. Next up is Virginia, NV5F. Virginia, what did you think of the characterization from KE5IC?
KE5ICX, this is NV5F. Well, I have to kind of reflect what some other people have said since I spoke last, and what Bill was saying about the whole thing was, a pretty intense and kind of a disturbing movie. I do remember after I saw it the first time, I was like, yeah, this is kind of a one-time only for me. I kind of put it on to run today for the purpose of talking about it, and I had it, going where I could hear the sound and even some of the audio was disturbing, just to listen to it while I was doing other projects. But I didn't really watch intensely enough to really kind of redevelop an opinion on the character. Exploitation of, children and their immaturity, and kind of forcing them into adulthood. I guess the whole excuse was, well, the world just needs people to, be ready to fight these aliens. So we're just going to train all these kids to fight aliens. And I guess that's a concern. Usually science fiction addresses concerns. But yeah, I'm going to kind of go with Sean and Bill. This is definitely a one-time only for me as far as really sitting and intently watching it. But I thought the main character, as underdeveloped as he was compared to maybe the book, and books always have more time. You have the luxury of, a large number of pages to describe their every thought and their backstory and that sort of thing. I think this type of typical character is definitely done in other places in ways that make you care a little more. I think the starkness of the environment and the complexity of the story, I guess, probably made it harder to make him into a really engaging character. I think they really tried to do that with his letters to his sister, and make him seem very, very lonely and detached from anything that gave him comfort. And they did a good job of helping you, making you kind of empathize and sort of feel intensely, that what he was dealing with. I thought the acting was good. I mean, it was a good movie, a well-made movie as far as its, just general production quality and acting. And I thought the kids all did a pretty good job playing their parts, and Harrison Ford was fine. It was, he's always a good actor. So I think overall acting was pretty good too, and characters, there's not very many to like here that are meant to be likable, but I think that it was all right. It was like most of you guys are like, yeah, it's an okay movie, and it had a well-made, just generally well-crafted, but as far as effects and all that, pretty good actors, and so all the plot inconsistencies and difficulty understanding why they did certain things notwithstanding, I thought the characters were okay in V5F.
Okay, thank you, Virginia. Next up, Cruz, KI5KWG. Cruz, what you think of characterization and acting, for that matter, from KE5IC?
KI5KWG. Yeah, I usually use the characterization to really talk about the acting, but probably less so today. Tony's really, I thought, got a lot of really good points on this. And then Virginia just mentioned one that I had just finished writing down. I said exploiting the naivete of youth seemed to be what they were doing. And what I had in my notes before that was, if this is a morality story, which it seemed to have been, then what was the moral view after nearly losing humanity to this new enemy? Now, that'd be a good story, and maybe it was in the novel, but it wasn't in the film. I didn't know where these characters were morally or ethically. I didn't know what their value systems were, and it really wasn't discernible. They did talk a lot about empathy. I mean, that was mentioned several times, leading to that telepathy concept that really just came in as the plot twist at the very end of the story. rather than developed. So the acting was good, but the characterization was lacking because I really didn't care about them. I didn't know enough about them to care. I kind of knew what the plot was, so I followed along with that. But I'm going to go to one more. If you have that kind of technology, Tom, you were talking about, a day's journey suddenly to this other solar system. If we've got that kind of technology and basically a Death Star ship that can destroy a whole planet with one shot, and empathy is the theme, okay, you've got a planet halfway between Earth and there that's deserted, except for the occasional military bases on it. How about draw a comet to it and put it in orbit and say, here's your water. We're the empathetic people. Now leave us alone, or next time we'll bring fire. There's the plot resolution right there. Didn't happen. And I don't know why it didn't happen. I think several things like that could have made this a much better story and didn't. That's what I've got. KI5, KWG, back to net.
All right, interesting. Next up is Bill, W5BLT. Bill, what did you think of the plot characterization for Ender's Game from 2013?
BLT. I'm going to be honest with you. I like the characters. I thought and did a good job. I mean, they did what they could do in the. My favorite character, I can't remember his name now. I wrote it down and I lost my notes. Was the military drill sergeant that was first there. That said he wasn't there basically to be their pillow, and then they had a line of you can. When they were talking about that they had privacy once the implant was removed, and the drill sergeant told them that you had think anything you want, but you couldn't speak it publicly. When you talk about what society do, there's debate over dropping a on Japan, and why was that done? And those who fought were just glad to have it. And sometimes I think when I felt like in this movie, it's easy to debate. I haven't got to the point in the book yet. I got the impression in the movie that maybe the insects were the invade Earth, but maybe areas for the invasion that they knew. I misunderstood that part. So I like the characters. They didn't come away likable necessarily, but I don't think the intent. I think was to go over the like I said, I can't say that I think they were for what they were doing. BLT.
All right, thank you, Bill. And this is KE5ICX. Any additional check-ins? We'll take them now. If you'd like to join us, tonight's movie is Ender's Game from 2013. If you'd like to join us, come call, sign your name, and did you see the bill? All right, hearing none. I don't have a lot to say about characterization, except that I did, well, people were talking, I did find the Wikipedia on the book and all the characters, and there is at least about a dozen different characters in here, some of whom we've met in the film, maybe 2 dozen, each of which actually kind of tests Ender's mental fortitude in various ways, and I can see how that could actually help and make the story much more interesting with that. And as Tony had alluded to, of course, we get limited in time and effort and commodity to get to a satisfactory conclusion of the story, moving it on, with also being able to work with characters. We have to dumb it down. In this one, I can see how this could be a real problem with the storyline. Maybe that's why as the movie didn't do as well as it could have, because the characterizations here are deep and interesting, contrasting. So, I guess with that, you've got to take it with what you get. Maybe if they had done a composite characters, they could do something with it where they combine several characters into one, give it a complex twist. We didn't get a lot of that. I did see a lot of the few stuff which then kind of crowds out actual dialogue and plot development and character development that goes along with it, and that could be a problem. So maybe my answer to this is not so much talking about characterization or the lack of characterization, but the lack of time to work on characterization for a story that appears to be more complex than what was shown on screen, maybe a great deal more. So with that, maybe the thing to say is that having all of these people described in the stories, these kids, that they would have an opportunity for anyone who is reading the book at adolescent age would find it themselves in there, or would see characters that they understood, and then be able to actually relate and then act in real life with what they wanted and needed to do. So maybe I'll go with that. All right, let's go to the top of the list. I'm starting to fade a little bit, folks, so forgive me. Started early this morning as usual, but I think even though I have my little nappy, I think I'm still fading this evening. So let's go on to, this could be special effects music, or something that you missed the first time around, maybe the last round. We'll see. You may have a fourth one, I don't know. But let's assume this is the final round. So Tony, NT5PM, Tony, what do you have to say technically about the film itself, or anything that you think that might have that you might want to say in regards to what the movie has already portrayed? See, I'm struggling. I'm falling asleep. So Tony, go ahead with your comments from NT5PM from KE5ICS.
Sometimes news stories on radio or TV will come with warnings like, for people who might have PTSD or what have you, caution, this news story features the sounds of automatic gunfire. There was a news story on the radio about the universality of lullabies, and of course it was right at 5 o'clock in drive time, so it had to have a warning. Lullabies, caution, do not fall asleep while driving. Fortunately, we cannot sing lullabies here on amateur radio, but I totally sympathize. Tom, thank you for being net control. I know it's always hard to keep going so late. I don't have a lot to add. I did appreciate people's comments on how this was a watch once. I would like to strongly agree with that. As far as the effects, I would like to give it a rousing humbug. I mean, the production design was competent and futuristic and yada yada. Oh, but so much CGI. So much CGI. I'm just... Yes, I know you can do as much as you want. Whoopee. I'd like to pat them on the head. Oh, there now, visual effects supervisor. Oh, I know you know how to click on all those buttons. You're so good with using a mouse. I have nothing praiseworthy to say about that. I'm just feeling like a curmudgeon. I know it's not going to get any better because it's so cheap. and so fast, but I've been tired of it for a long time. NT5, Tia.
All right, thank you, Tony. I've got a thing now. I'll rant about the gravity thing here in a little bit, which drove me frickin' crazy. Let's see here. We're skipping John. We're skipping Brenda. Sorry, gang. I think Brenda fell asleep. She disappeared off the attention thing on the Facebook thing. So we'll move on to Sean. KB9SOK. Sean, what did you think of anything? Go ahead. KE5, I guess.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Yeah, opening up to what I think about anything could be pretty dangerous, but we'll keep it to the movie. Yeah, I kind of feel like Tony does on this one. I do think the music was okay for what it was. I think the sound was okay. But yeah, the special effects, I do feel that for such a big budget film, I don't know what they actually spent. I didn't look. But, once again, kind of like what I mentioned earlier, we had a house, we had a scene outside where they were by the lake, which didn't even look real, and then we had obviously the space scenes where the training was. Once again, it seemed pretty basic, really, for a big budget film. It wasn't horrible, but obviously, like you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of plot holes there of why they did this in space, and their whole, it didn't make any sense why you'd magically walk through a doorway, literally 6 inches in and all at once went from full gravity to no gravity. The scenes for being weightless weren't the best that we've seen. I agree with that. And being they made such a big point of it, I would have liked to see them do a better job of that, especially since that was such a highlight. And then, of course, in the end, we had the big space battle where, he was controlling everything with his hands and what you could see. And I guess and that 10 years ago, that's about where the I shouldn't say special effects, but the CG was at. To me, it looked like just really like watching a high-end video game or a lower budget, CG. I felt it could have been better. Maybe in a big theater, with a screen real big, and it maybe would have made you feel like you were there. And maybe it would have felt more real. But I just felt that it was kind of, bah. I think there is a place for CG. I think that, when you mix it in with practical effects, and it can enhance it, and I do think we have seen movies where I think CG has really helped it. But this is one where it was just kind of a dirty way to get what they wanted without spending maybe as much money, or maybe they did want to try to show off what they thought they could do with it. I was a little disappointed with that part of it as well. But once again, I think this was meant to be more character focused, and but if you're going to call it a sci-fi, obviously you got to bring some of that in. No real major closing thoughts, just kind of it's already been said. I still think it was interesting to watch. I'm glad we watched it, but won't watch it again. I'm not sure. I'd be on the fence whether I'd recommend this, especially if you heard somebody read the book. Probably not. But it is still. I still found it somewhat interesting. So back to that. KB9SOK.
All right, thank you, Sean. Next up, Virginia, ND5S. Virginia, your thoughts on special effects? Anything or music or anything that you haven't discussed so far? Please go ahead from KE5IC.
Okay, thank you, Tom. It's interesting. I was actually just thinking about when we watched Mad Max a few weeks ago, and we were having kind of a sort of a debate during the Friday night group watching, and the whole "is this science fiction" came up, and I decided that movie is not science fiction. And then I realized later that weekend, or maybe early next week, I remembered a term from my youth when I was into science fiction that there is a difference, but a term that can be used in place of or in conjunction with science fiction would be the term speculative fiction, and I don't know if anyone else has ever heard that term, but I think this kind of mixes those, because you have aliens, you have the kind of science fiction with aliens, you have the kind of science fiction with technology, you have the kind of science fiction with interplanetary conflicts, and then you have the kind of science fiction, it's science fiction because it's in the future, but this is kind of a little bit speculative, like, what's the world coming to, with kids and video games and desensitization. So I was thinking about that a little bit when Sean mentioned science fiction. I thought that it actually reminded me a little bit of last week's movie, the dark, sort of low contrast, green cast that Tony hates. That the movie kind of had that. It had kind of that dreary, eerie, kind of sickly color coding to it in places. And I thought about it, and I remembered it just kind of hit me while I was watching it, that dark kind of icky, sicky feeling that we get from some of these movies. I think sometimes you can trace those things back to a single movie, and I was watching this, and all I could think of was The Matrix. It had a few Matrix moments in it where it was just disturbing and violent, and just kind of had that. And I really think that The Matrix kind of set a precedent for this sort of some of the feelings that I now still get from newer movies. The very dark, weirdly low contrast, kind of greenish, kind of almost nauseous, tone, bilious, that's a good word. And that it does make it hard to go, yeah, I'd recommend this to someone, or I would want to see it again, and I don't think I'd recommend it to anybody. I did not watch real close about the visual effects this time. I'm with you guys. I'm a fan of practical effects, and they do hold up if they're done well. I mean, we watched Short Circuit a while back, and it's got very, very practical effects, and they still hold up. You enjoy that character, and that could still be done, and I think some people still do. They did that with the first season of Stranger Things. They very much wanted to do practical effects, and then of course they gave in to, well, it'd be much easier to do all these creatures, swarming or whatever with CG. I'm going to have to disagree a little with Tony about CG. It's not cheaper. It costs a lot because there are so many people. It's really hard work. I am taking a very beginning animation course, just a survey of Maya software, which is what they used to do a lot of this stuff with, and that software will blow your mind, and somebody has to build the model and make it perfectly detailed, all the tiny details that are on it. A person has to sit and model that. Another person has to put a rig in it, which means they have to figure out a way to get it to move naturally. When it's a spaceship, it's not as hard as when it's a creature. Somebody has to animate it, frame by frame. Somebody has to light it. Somebody has to do the camera shots. There have to be pre-visualization people. They have to storyboard all of it. They have to composite it with the film. It takes a lot of people and a lot of time, many, many, many man-hours, and that's now when you watch the credits for a movie now, especially a visual effects movie like this one, the credits have thousands of people's names. It takes so many people to do this stuff, and I'm not saying I prefer it, but I'm going to defend the amount of work it is. You don't just click a mouse or push a button and it does it all for you. It's very work-intensive for the people who do it. You're, hours slumping in a chair, just kind of trying to get things to look natural, which if you just did them practically, it would be a little easier to get them to look natural, but that's just not how we do it now. You can do anything. You can pretty much do them. There's even people who do surfaces. They just do surfaces. They figure out how to make the materials look real, and so there's just so many levels of people doing, working on this stuff, and it doesn't make it great or make it lovable or likable or wonderful. It's just what it is. It's a lot of work, and the people who do it, they definitely know their stuff. regardless of what the material is they're given. And sometimes they don't like the material they're working. So anyway, that's my soapbox on CG effects, and it's getting late, so I'll turn it back over to Net K5ICX NV5F.
Very good, thank you, Virginia. And next up is Cruz, KI5KWG. Cruz, your final thought, KE5ICX.
KI5KWG, not much here. I will say one, I think I needed a Snickers. I got pretty down on this film. I'm going to go have some chocolate ice cream in a minute, I think. And Zero Gravity. I read some sci-fi novel probably 10, 20 years ago, and I remember there was a whole long exposition of humans fighting an alien race that lived in microgravity, and that how specialized their training was. And it was very much as the way I imagined it while reading the book as it was done in this film. So I thought that was kind of cool, except that they didn't fight in spacesuits one-on-one. They fought in Death Stars. So it was irrelevant. And I think it was Tom who was saying, what was the point of that? Why do that? So, but I did think that the zero gravity scenes were actually quite well done. Those were very good effects, and I appreciated them, even though it didn't seem to have a thing to do with the plot. KI5 KWG, back to net.
Oh, I'm holding back. No comment. Coming back to it in a bit. W5DLT, Phil, your final comment.
I think I'll just withhold my comments and let the fireworks go. No, seriously, I like the music. I really did like the music in this book. I didn't have a chance to look up who did it, but I just thought the music fit. It's not memorable necessarily, although like I think it was the violins that they had. I like the music. The way it was done, it kind of maybe fit with the action. And I wish this was a scripted video. I couldn't find it on Amazon. I'm going to look. I'm really drawn into the book. I will say that. It's getting late, and I'll just leave it at that. Again, I can't thank you guys enough. I so appreciate that it's not just scripted video scenes and everything. So appreciate this group and bring to the table. W5DLT.
Okay, thank you, Bill, and you're welcome. Now, this is fun. We all enjoy doing this. It may be late at night, and sometimes it's just asking things to do because it is late at night. But no, I think people enjoy it. We like movies and get to talk about them too, which is perfectly fine. Well, my final comments, I don't have a lot here except to say that the zero gravity thing drove me freaking crazy. That's not how zero gravity works. You suddenly have gravity, and you see this rotating around, and somehow that's 1G or something. I don't know. It's not. It's 0G with the rotating sequences that are there. It had at least not had this. I don't know. Maybe it's the sections that had rotated in kind it would have worked. It's just weird. I don't know. It was one of those things where you go, I don't know, how do they do that? Didn't make any sense. I guess they wanted to it should be continuously the same. There shouldn't be any rotating structure at all, because none of it can physically work the way they showed it, at least not in the way that I can imagine late at night on a Saturday. So maybe somebody could explain it to me, but not tonight. Anything else? I didn't mind the special effects so much. I thought they were okay. The way it was constructed, that part made sense, although the space station thingy didn't make any sense. I still don't get that, but I already covered that earlier. Okay, well, with that, we leave on a whimper. Let me see here. Let me find next week's movie. Please stand by. All right, this one's unusual. This is going back, I think, Art House movies. This one is also from 2013 called Jet Stream. A new phenomenon. Let's see what we say here. It says a new phenomenon is occurring around the globe. A series of jet streams have been leveling entire cities, bringing down airplanes and leaving nothing untouched. Debbie Bowe, a young scientist, and Dr. Steve Simpson, a meteorologist, team up to get to the bottom of what's causing these twisters. Jet Stream will be next week's movie. Hooray. I'm sure it'll be everything we expect it to be, and less. So we'll see you next time, next week. Well, we still managed to go almost to midnight in 9 minutes. But there you have it. I'll send out all the usual stuff tomorrow morning sometime in the a.m. And we'll give it another go next Saturday. So I'll say 7-3 to everybody. Had a good time, although I am fighting sleep. We'll do this again. KE5ICX, but not clear. See ya.
KE5ICX, N5SQA. Good night, Tom.
73 Stu, K5JW.
Oh, thank you all. Yes, I am just dreaming of that pillow right now. See you guys.